welcome everybody. I'm here for another video with my very good friend, Ashely Sorensen. I am
You
so
just,
happy to have you. Welcome, Ashely.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
So before we get into it, can you just tell us how you became a massage therapist? Because I feel like the way that I ended up with you when I had all of my crazy ankle stuff is kind of relevant to how you became a massage therapist. So tell us like how you got there.
Well, I grew up dancing in a pretty prestigious ballet school in the city of Portland. And from there, about 14 or 15, I got pretty sick and had to leave dance. Um, and sort of finding myself in this, like, what do I do with myself and all my time mode, I sort of really jumped into yoga. So yoga, I just sort of replaced one for the other. I got heavily involved with that and actually ended up getting my teaching certificate when I was 17 or so, and started teaching fairly regularly at that point. And then I wanted something that would kind of not only help my clients with their yoga practice, but sort of something that complemented it. So I just sort of threw a dart and was like, what about body work? And never expecting that it would become my full-time career, really. And when I got into school, I just really fell in love with anatomy and physiology and kinesiology and how everything sort of fits together. And from there, my practice really blossomed. And then I met great people like you.
Yeah, and so I ended up with you because my surgeon, when I talk about this on the blog, when I was sort of like done with physical therapy, he sent me to a Pilates instructor to help me work on my whole body because I was like, I had been ignoring all of my sort of chronic body issues while I was so fixated on my ankle. And then I sort of plateaued in physical therapy and needed something more that wasn't just about my ankle. So I started doing this physical therapy stuff and this Pilates stuff, and it was way more like holistic, sort of addressing all of my messed up issues. And then I needed additional help. I was just on a quest to like get all the help I could get. And my Pilates teacher was like, well, I know this like dancer turned yoga instructor turned massage therapist who you have to see. So that's when I came to you. And I will never forget the first time I came to you, I was like still in like a lot of pain and tight and just uncomfortable. And I'm like, do you want me to show you like all the places that it hurts? And you're like, no, I got this. And you're like, I'll figure it out. And then you immediately just like went to all my places, which was just a godsend. And I've been seeing you for years. I mean, you've helped me with so many like shoulder things and neck things, and also continued to work on my foot, like my arch, my toes, my heel, my Achilles, my calf. It just like in my video with the physical therapist, which you guys have to go check out, she described it really well. Like you basically, just like you have to brush your teeth every day and you have to take care of your mouth and your oral hygiene, you have to take care of your body for the rest of your life, and that's going to include your ankle. It's never going to stop being a thing. And so to have a physical therapist or a Pilates instructor or a massage therapist or anybody it is who gets you, you know, feeling good is good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I try to tell my clients, like, don't, like, when you injure yourself, that tissue will never be the same again. And I don't mean to say that to scare you. I mean to say it to empower you. Like, this is, to have that knowledge of, instead of, just kind of pretending like it never happened, it's going to empower you a lot more than trying to just think like, when is this going to get better? When am I going to get back to normal? When am I going to, it's sort of like thinking like, when is what's happening right now, when are we going to get back to normal? It's like, it's not going to happen, like we're all altered now, and we're going to go about our lives in different ways, and feeling different things. So
And as this video ages, Ashley's talking about like the whole COVID thing. Yeah.
I forget about that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So first question. And actually you were just kind of talking about it, but like, what is actually happening to our tissue when you have a trauma, when you have surgery? Like, what is it that makes it different forever? Can you talk about like what tissue goes through, and whether that's like, I don't even know how to ask the question, if it's like muscles or ligaments or whatever it is that's getting affected?
Yeah, well, just maybe let's just think about muscles and bones, because that's easier than adding in like ligaments and tendons and all that, because that's connective tissue and it's a whole other world. But I think it's easier if we think about like just muscles, just bones. So bones heal completely different than muscles heal. Bones heal with other bone material like calcium and minerals. And as long as it's cared for properly, set properly, all that stuff can heal pretty much to the point where it's like before, right? So it's just as strong, so on and so forth. Muscles, on the other hand, heal with like foreign material. It doesn't heal with muscle tissue. It heals with collagen or scar tissue. So it's, once it's been injured, that's what I mean when I say it'll never be the same again, because it doesn't heal with muscle tissue like bone heals with bone. It heals with scar tissue. And that scar tissue is so different from muscle tissue in that it's less elastic, so it's not as stretchy as muscle is. It lacks circulation as much as muscle tissue is, and in general, it's weaker. So those sort of three things make it so that it will be prone to injury for forever, as long as the scar tissue exists. So re-injury, I should say. So it's like, if anybody's ever pulled a hamstring and it's like, God, I pulled my hamstring again. Oh, I pulled my hamstring again. It's because it's healed with a tissue that's not muscle tissue. And so it's forever altered and will always be prone to injury.
I did not know that. How have we like nerded out about muscles and tissue for so many years, and I didn't even realize that. That's cool. I mean, it's weird.
Wow.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm actually just going to skip a whole bunch of questions and go straight to scar tissue. Can we talk about scar massage? Because I think it's something that a lot of people have no idea even what it is. So let's start with what it is. And I found it so unbelievably relieving, and it's terrible to get done to you. Terrible. Like my whole body would break into a sweat.
Yeah.
But it's like, why is it so beneficial, and why do we also have to keep doing it? Because even like 8 years out, I still have to go in and wiggle my scar by myself. Like, so what is it? Why is it important? And why do we need to keep doing it?
Okay. So muscles are made up of muscle fibers, and each muscle grouping has different fibers that all run in the same direction. So like your pec major, all the fibers run in that direction. Your scalenes, all the fibers run in the same direction. And the fibers need to be running in the same direction in order for the muscle to function properly. So when you injure something, so let's say you get into a car accident and you get whiplash, right? And you get, whiplash in the neck, and now you've injured your scalenes. Well, the body gets sent a message. There's something wrong here, and it sends in scar tissue to help
Mm.
stabilize, repair, all of that. And but the problem is that the scar tissue doesn't lay in the same direction as the muscle fibers, right? So it's sort of it kind of is like interwoven web. So if you think about like Spider-Man, when he like shoots out his web and it like splats against the wall, that's sort of what it does, right? And it's across and down and in and all of that to try and stabilize that muscle to keep you to recover from the injury and keep you from re-injuring it or continuing to exacerbate it. Well, in order for you to regain, maximum strength and mobility back into that tissue, the scar tissue needs to be aligned in the same direction as those muscle tissues. So it needs to be aligned and integrated in with that muscle. The problem is that the body doesn't actually have a mechanism for doing that, at least not that we know at this point in medical knowledge. It could change. So that's where massage comes in. It helps to align those fibers, break it up. When the question about like why do we have to continue to do so, a lot of times you have an injury and the nervous system reacts, and it reacts to like the most microscopic cell of scar tissue, and then sends in all of these messages. There's an injury here, there's an injury here, which causes inflammation, it causes pain, all of that. So if you let that scar tissue continue to build, which is what the body does, it continues to send the same message to the nervous system, and the nervous system continues to send the same message back saying there's an acute injury, even though it's not acute, it's chronic. You had it 8 years ago, you had it a decade ago, or whatever it is. So it's sort of the body doing its job, but like too well, kind of a thing, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So tell us be specific with my ankle so people can
Okay.
get a sense.
Okay.
Like, when I came in and you gave me scar massage, what did you physically do to me?
Oh gosh. Let's see.
I'll start.
Okay.
My memory is that you basically, so like, guys, how along your ankle, you've got your scar. My memory is that Ashely basically lifted it up, rolled it around in her fingers, like
Don't
pushed
scare
it this way,
people.
pushed it that way, and vigorously like went
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is basically you're trying to break up the little tiny webs that are going in all different directions, and you're trying to get things to glide smoothly. So in order for something to function properly, the muscles and the ligaments and all that stuff needs to be able to glide smoothly next to each other. Well, if you add a bunch of scar tissue in there, it can't move. That's where your lack of range of motion comes in. That's where the stiffness happens. All of that is because things aren't gliding properly. So yeah, essentially you get in there, and it's like really tiny little tight scrubbing, and you're trying to, it's sort of like if you think of like the thickest taffy or something like that, being pulled apart, and you're trying to like loosen all those fibers to get everything to sort of let go. And it can feel obviously very intense, like you say, but it feels very, it's kind of like burning. It's like a hot sensation,
Yeah.
and you know
And for all those people who ask me, like, how can I get more range of motion? Like, I have chronic stiffness. Like, if you haven't done scar massage, that's a missing piece that you've got to try.
Mm-hmm.
Disclaimer being that you have to have a fully healed scar. You can't
Oh
just
yeah.
go messing around in there if it's
Yeah.
not like fully healed.
Right.
And while it sucks, it's measurably satisfying at the end. Like, you can see the difference even now when I like sit in bed and watch TV and, like, kind of mess with it. I can see the difference between starting it where it's sort of like stuck, the scar is like
Yeah.
stuck to my skin,
Mm-hmm.
versus then afterwards it's like supple. It's like
Yeah.
you can like mess with it.
Right.
And I think that's the goal, right? Is
Yeah.
that it's just like it waves around with your skin, like
Right.
like this.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody heals differently too. Like I'm someone who my personal body puts down a lot of scar tissue. Like I could barely cut myself on my finger and I'll, or scrape it and it's like I have this huge scar forever. So especially if you're someone like that, and if you are because you just do, you really have to pay attention to what is my scar doing and what's all the surrounding fascia and tissue doing as well, because
Yeah.
that scar will be affecting everything around it.
Oh, I love that topic. Okay, next question. I have had many questions from people on something that I went through a lot, which is like, once I start weight bearing, I feel like I have all these new aches and pains, and it's kind of like always something new. And I remember when I would go to you one week, I would be like, my toes are ridiculously tight, work on my toes. And then it would be my arch or my heel or my Achilles. And it was like, um, it was just a constantly moving target. And can you talk about like when you've been immobilized and then you start walking and weight bearing, like what is the thing that's happening um, as the healing process is starting, that like from a muscle perspective, that suddenly like, why was I coming with different aches and pains every week?
I would say that one of the biggest problems with Western medicine and culture, let's say, is that we have been taught to think that our body is all parts just sort of thrown together and everything acts independently of everything else. So like, oh, my wrist hurts, there's something wrong with my wrist, or I have psoriasis, there's something wrong with my skin, or I have, you know um, an irregular menstrual cycle, there's something wrong with my uterus. And Western medicine tends to treat it as such, oh, wrist problem, we got to do carpal tunnel surgery, psoriasis, topical steroid, irregular cycle, birth control pills, instead of going, maybe my wrist is hurting me from that car accident I had 10 years ago with this whiplash, or maybe the psoriasis is dietary,
Right.
or maybe my irregular cycle is an impinged nerve in my lumbar thoracic spine that innervates all of that whole area in there, which can be totally possible. But like the reality is that our body is so connected that it's sort of mind-boggling how connected everything is. And we're connected, and in not like a woo-woo-y kind of way, but like an actual physical kind of way, where it's the it's essentially a web of fascia. So fascia um, is connective tissue, and it can be found everywhere in your whole body, from just below the surface of the skin all the way down to a cellular level. And fascia, again, is the knowledge of it is changing so rapidly right now that it's, you know, it's being considered as another organ. It's even just in my time frame of the last, you know, 15 years of being a body worker, it's gone from being sort of this like uh you know like a remnants of cadaver, you know, like to being like a primary subject in how the body works, which is like totally talk about nerding out. It's just
Yeah.
like it's amazing. But like if you think about a web, right? Like a spider web, and you take, you know, one of those little offsprings and you just pluck that one string, right? What happens to the rest of the web? It doesn't stay still. It just it
Right.
reverberates through the whole thing.
Right.
Or, you know, you say you break one of those little strings, it doesn't necessarily crumple the whole web, but it takes out a huge surrounding portion, right? So if you injure something, especially something as important as an ankle or a foot, which is your baseline, right? Your foundation of the rest of your body, it's going to be felt through the whole web. You could have jaw pain. You could have, you know, it's just it's not possible to break really anything, but especially something like your ankle or your foot and not feel it in other areas.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. And I remember when you first like started talking about fascia, and I ended up, I don't know if you remember this, I ended up going on YouTube and looking up like video. It was
Yeah,
like
it's,
super nerd, but like cadaver videos that show how fascia like goes across your
yeah,
whole body.
yeah,
And it's amazing. Like for those of you who care and who are interested, it's fascinating to see like the idea that if, you know, something is pulled over here, you can feel it over here
yeah,
because it's all just like yanking. This fascia is
right.
like so strong.
Like one of the things that I would give my clients to sort of easily explain what the like feeling fascia in their own body was something like, and I feel like I gave this to you at some point, but I'll try and back up so you can see. But like extending the arm, right? Extending the arm, flexing the hand, and you'll start to feel it in the fingertips and the wrist, and then extending the arm, flexing the hand, and then
Yeah.
dropping the head down, and you feel it go not only me personally, I feel it go all the way across my chest, underneath, and into the fingertips. So just something that simple where you're like, how does this, me turning my head, affect my fingertips?
Right. Right.
You know?
It's so, I mean, it's so good. It's like we could have a whole thing on fascia. I could. What do you think, like, if somebody doesn't have access to regular massage, or they do, but they don't feel like it's working or whatever, what are some things that they can buy or do to try to either um, loosen their own scar, or sort of like loosen muscles generally, like try to emulate sort of what it is that you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, I would say not every body worker or massage therapist is knowledgeable in the way of treating an acute injury. So do your research.
What should they
Make
be
sure you,
researching? Like how do you find somebody?
um, that would probably be somebody specific who is in neuromuscular relief or myofascial release or ART, active release therapy, things that are a little bit more specialized than just the run of the mill massage envy person.
Yeah.
Now,
And to be really explicit, you guys, if you're going to a massage therapist and they just like spread oil all over you, that's generally a good indication that it's not the kind of
yeah,
massage you should be getting. Like Ashely, she uses very little lubrication because part of getting in the fascia is actually being able to like grip it with your hands. So if
right,
you're getting lubey with oil, like
right.
that's not it.
Yeah. Yeah. In order to affect fascia and or scar tissue, the movement needs to happen at the surface. And in order for the movement to happen at the surface, there needs to be grip, not glide. So I won't say that if you have a body worker that is using oil or lotion isn't effective, because regardless of whatever kind of massage you're getting, it's going to be beneficial in
Sure.
increasing circulation, increasing the lymph system, which especially like in your case, when you were laid up for so long,
Yeah.
your lymph system basically like stagnates.
Yep.
And having somebody who can get in there and just move your blood, and that alone will help decrease the swelling and the edema and allow for nutrients to move in there and
Mm.
do their job. So
Okay.
it's two totally different massages. One is more rehabilitative, and the other is more, I would say, like, one is post-op, 4 to 6 months. The other is like you could still be in a cast and be getting just some lymph movement, some circulation movement, and also just like mental healing, right? You've just had a major injury that's traumatic. And if it's your first, it's super traumatic, because you go from a working body to a not working body, and having that happen to you is super
Uh,
overwhelming,
yeah.
and you're scared, and you're all you can think of is like, am I going to walk again? Am I going to have a permanent limp? And like all of that kind of stuff. And so just having a time where you can go and just have somebody help you to sort of just relax,
So
you
true.
know?
So
Yeah. So it's like, it's two totally different massages. But if you're looking for the massage that is going to help you increase your range of motion, decrease the tension and the scar buildup, that is going to be somebody who is more specialized for sure. And you do need to do your research and find that person. And also it's like body workers are like, hairdressers, or anything else. There are good ones and there are bad ones.
right.
And if you go to someone who's bad, don't go back, like.
And so, so if they can't find a massage
Right.
therapist, what are some like DIY things people can do to themselves?
So I would say, like, kind of how you were talking about before and earlier, when you're watching a movie or something and just kind of messing around with your own scar, like that's really a big one. Just always be, when you're not doing something like watching a movie or something like that, you should be stretching.
Yeah.
You should be working on your scar. You should be doing something to help. And it doesn't have to be like super active. You can still be relaxing and sort of working on it, or have your partner work on it, if you have one. And different things like that. You can also use gua sha tool, which I think you have and
Hmm.
have used, and that is essentially, it's essentially like scar tissue work. It's topical, and it's sort of just like scraping. So it's a tool that, if you think about, it's just sort of flat, and I'm sure you'll have a link of
Yeah.
what it is. But
Got it linked on the site.
yeah, and there's a ton of YouTube videos out there of like, how do I use this? Silicone cupping is another great way that I use personally. I use gua sha also just all over. I use it on my face. I use it across, because it's so effective on not only scar tissue but just general fascia.
Yeah.
So cupping is another great one that's again very effective for fascial relief, for um, scar tissue relief, all of that. So those are two things, plus just working on yourself or having someone else work on it. And kind of like what we talked about before, is like just wrapping your head around the fact that it's that you now have this thing that you have to maintain. There's so many of my clients who I swear take better care of their cars than they do themselves. It's like, oh, it's change my oil and I rotate my tires. And, it's like, why do we accept that so much more than we accept like maintaining our one body that we have to maintain until the day we're dead?
Yeah.
And a car, you can buy a new one. What you do now is going to determine how you feel when you're 80 and 90, and what going to determine like can you walk comfortably, can you all of that stuff. So the things that you take care of now, and especially if you have a major injury, that's really going to affect how you're going to feel 10, 20, 30, 50 plus years down the road. So
Yeah, and I love something my chiropractor told me. My chiropractor, who I still go to get my ankle adjusted, he said he finds that oftentimes, specifically with athletes, that an injury can be a blessing because it really puts your attention then on that part, and then you're way better off than your peers who maybe they're walking around with like terrible ankles and not realizing it. And meanwhile,
right.
you've got these like strong, although they can be cranky sometimes, but like strong, flexible, good ankles, even though one might feel different than the other. Whereas most people don't even like think about their ankles.
Right. I come across those clients all the time who are so disconnected to what's happening inside of them that it's like, how do you function? How do you go about your day-to-day life? And your brain essentially just starts turning it off. It's
Yeah.
like, we've sent you this same signal of like, hey, your neck, hey, your neck, for 2 decades now. It's like, now we're just gonna turn it off.
Right. And then what does that look like? So if you go around and you continue to ignore the signals you're getting, what does that mean to just turn it off?
It a lot of times it shows up as numbness.
Mm,
So like people, like the fascia gets so tight that it basically is like cutting off major, like the real fine nerve signals. So it's like, I'm sure like most people, like I know you have areas in your neck and shoulders where yeah, you can just be like wailing on it and you're like,
yeah.
I don't know, I don't feel really much of anything,
Yep.
and that's totally one of those things where it's like it at one point was very acute, and it just it sort of snowballs into, I don't have time to take care of it, or it's going to go away on its own, or whatever it is, and then your body compensates, really, which is its job, and what it's been sort of genetically modified to do, right? So that we can continue to hunt and gather no matter what we have going on in our body. And then it compensates in that fashion of just like, well, okay, well then I guess we'll just stop telling you.
Right.
Or it develops into chronic illness,
Right.
things like that, where obviously that's still really in its infancy of discovery right now, as far as an anatomy and its connection to chronic illness and all of that. But
Mm.
and in connection to like emotional trauma, things that are held into the body, and then again sort of manifests in physical ways, and then so on and so forth. But
Whew. All right. So I feel like the moral of this story is all people should be getting massage, basically. But the main moral is for people who have broken their ankles, they should probably try to get involved in both kinds of massage. One is the kind that, whether it's oily and lathery or not at all, like you just, it's a way to relax and get blood flowing and get lymph moving. And if you haven't already, check out my interview with Dr. Gelman, the orthopedic surgeon, who also talks quite a bit about lymph and the importance of moving it when you've got swelling. And just like overall relaxation and mental wellness. And for what it's worth, like I've come to Ashely many times over the years and been like, can you just give me some circulation?
yeah,
Like
can
that,
you just be nice to me?
yeah, just like make things move. So there's that. And then there's the more specialized kind of massage that is a little bit more technical, that's working on actually trying to get the fascia moving and grooving, and also the scar tissue. And that requires a little bit more expertise, potentially a little bit more pain, but the good kind of pain. And if you're trying to get back range of motion, if you're trying to maybe get over some kind of chronic pain hump, like tight toes or tight arch or weird heel or whatever it might be, that's like a good place to focus too.
Yeah. Yeah, acupuncture is great for that kind of stuff too. If that sort of type of massage is maybe a little too intense for you, acupuncture can also be really helpful in the scar area, and maybe not as intense. So everybody has different pain tolerances, and it doesn't always have to be like you're screaming your brains out, but um, I knew I could go pretty aggressively on you because your pain tolerance is fairly high. So, and just obviously speaking up, making sure that's so important to talk to your body worker, your massage therapist, and really continually communicate with them. It's not offensive. We're not, we're in this job to make you feel better. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do, is because we want you to leave feeling good. And we can't do that if you're just quietly like, biting your hand off, or like this person isn't doing anything, or like it's not in the right spot and I'm not feeling, or whatever, so on and so forth. But
Ashely, thank you for doing this. And I
okay.
learned so much, even though we've talked about most of this stuff over the years, but like it's so fun to talk about it and to understand our bodies better. And so thank you for
You're
coming and
welcome.
talking to me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope, I hope that you're able to help lots of people, and I hope this helps lots of people. And I'm open to answer questions if people come up with things, and you can always reach out to me and say, hey, so and so asked this and I don't know. And
Cool. Thank you.
you're
I'll
welcome.
talk to you soon.